as soon as you make your journey about the weight loss, you're going to gain it all back. Because it's really not I know that's the big outcome that you're wanting, but more importantly, it's what you do every single day or consistently. You don't have to be perfect.
Welcome back to the Dr. Moe Show, where we talk about the freedom to shift. And today we have Charlene Chung, go by Shar, who is in my wheelhouse. I'm super excited to talk to you. I can't wait. I want to hear about, I want to hear about everything you do, but we only have today. But I want to hear about what you do now, and then we'll talk about kind of where you came from.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mo, for having me. I was leading up to this podcast. I was really excited for this one because your whole concept of like shifting to freedom, and that's exactly how my journey has been when I think about and what I wanted to prepare and what I wanted to share this episode, to give our listeners value. And because you even said we're in the same wheelhouse, so I'm so excited to even talk to you about how you help your clients and like how we could potentially help and serve both our audiences. So I was really looking forward to this. But how I got here, so it was a bit of a journey. I'm a macro nutrition coach, and so I help women lose fat sustainably. And it was really based on my own frustration with the diet culture and jumping from fad diet. And my background is actually an IT project management consultant. And so for 25 plus years, I was a hyperachiever, type A personality, and go, 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 go. And not once did I ever think of my nutrition as like anything that I had to pay attention to until I had to. And it was in 2020 where I found myself at my highest weight and I couldn't figure out what I wasn't doing right because I thought I was doing everything right. And I just kept gaining weight, and my husband and my kids were like, Shar, like, you got to stop work. Like, we see how stressed you are. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm okay. We can keep doing it. So they were encouraging me to quit. And at that time, I was the breadwinner, and I was like, I can't quit. Plus, we had just purchased a acreage, and we were doing a large scale renovation. So there's a lot of money going out the door. I was just high stress, and I found myself at my highest weight. And I woke up one morning and I was like, oh my God, like, what have I done? Like I need to make a change. And that I hired a coach. I was a micronutrition coach, and it opened my eyes to like, wow, I didn't realize how undernourished I was. Having coffee in the morning, going straight to work, followed by another cup of coffee, maybe my first meal around noon, just high stress. And then, I'd come home, and at that time I had little kids. So it's like driving them around. And that hasn't stopped, to be honest. My kids are teenagers, and if anything, I'm a taxi driver. So my days now, some days I leave at 2:30 and I'm not home until 8:30 in the evening, but I prioritize it. So I plan now. I plan my meals. I don't skip meals anymore. So my journey, I guess, into transitioning to a macro coach is basically helping others who have struggled like me. So when I discovered macronutrition, I was like, I want to learn more about this. So I went back to school. I became a certified macronutrition coach. And at that point, I wasn't thinking it would ever be a career, to be quite honest, Dr. Mo. I was just helping people on the side, my friends on the side. I just, for myself, just wanted to know more information about it to help myself on my journey. And then I started to notice the profound effect I had on people, helping others, and I enjoyed it. So I'm like, wow. I'm like, maybe I can make a career out of this. And it was, I was still working as an IT project manager. They had offered me a multi-year 6-figure extension on my contract. And an hour into that meeting, I texted my husband. I'm like, I think I need to quit. He's like, yeah, I've been telling you for 3 months to quit. So I walked into that meeting and I said, you know what? I appreciate this extension, but I can't do it. And that really forced me to go full time into the coaching. So I stayed on, I finished my project there, and then I transitioned into full-time coaching, and I haven't looked back. So I've been coaching now. It's coming up 3 years this year, or this month actually. So I'll be celebrating that. It's a huge milestone for me. It's given me freedom, because I remember at the beginning how we were talking about, I think it was before the recording, the freedom to be with our kids. I now have the freedom to drive my kids to school. I have the freedom to like pick them up and bring them to their activities,
We're
whereas
letting the
before
cat in.
I have that, right? And so, but that transition also from corporate into entrepreneurship is a bit of a transition and kind of a grievance period as well. Because for so long, I thought I had to be on from like 8 to 6 because that was 25 plus years of my life. So having this time freedom has been something new for me to adjust as well, if that makes sense.
So it makes total sense.
Like you're
Yeah.
an ER doctor background, so you know about being on all the time, right?
It makes total sense. And it's funny that we're doing this today, because I worked my last shift on Friday night, and barring any unforeseen changes, it will be my last shift.
Wow, I just got shivers. I got goosebumps.
And so you're 3 years into, and I've been doing this for about 2.5 years. I've been coaching for 25 years, but like you said, it was always dabbling or helping. I'm innately a coach. I go by success coach because I do financial coaching. Somebody asked me, "Are you a financial analyst?" I said, "No, in order to know what to do with your money, you have to have it first." So, no, I don't tell you what to do with it. I help people get it. So, because I coach physicians, I also have a fat loss coaching group and I have a medical practice. And I started doing that. So funny you say that you were in that meeting and just like, I can't do it. What have I done? What have I done to myself? I can't do
Yes.
this.
Yeah. So it was, I was at my highest weight. I was losing hair. I had lumps in my armpits. I just wasn't taking care of myself. There's more to this than what I was doing
Yeah.
anyway.
Then the
Sometimes
treadmill.
that wake up moment for us to make a change, unfortunately, right? And
It
that's where
is.
I'm,
It's very unfortunate. I was cleared by a cardiologist to do Ironman in 2022. I made it through 2/3 of the race, give or take. I was not strong enough to get through the bike that year. And I was also 55 pounds heavier at the time. And I was cleared by a cardiologist with a lesion in my cardiac lesion, atherosclerotic lesion, that was probably twice the size that it is today after the changes that I've made. But I looked fine by today's standards. Well, today's standards suck. Let's just call it what it is. I don't want to be average.
yeah. So that brings me to like where I've transitioned since I started this 3 years ago. So early on, so discovering macronutrition. So for those that don't know macronutrition, it's basically tracking your protein, carbs, and fat intake for your activity level and age, right? And so to me, it was like, wow, like, the flexibility it gave me and the knowledge it gave me to be able to, yes, I tracked my food, I weighed my food, but now I can eat intuitively and I feel so much better. I don't feel tied down. So the freedom that macros has given me, just around my mindset with food and relationship to food has been, I think everybody should probably track their food at some point because it brings so much awareness
Right.
to their eating habits, right? But what I found is, okay, my nutrition was on point. I was feeling good, feeling good. And then in 2023, something in my health shifted.
Mm.
And I went and I saw so many different doctors. And I think you can appreciate maybe the story, Dr. Bell, because you are a doctor as well. But every doctor I went to, they looked at me and they're like, but you're healthy. You look great. You look fine. I'm pretty sure it's not a heart condition. Yet my dad suffered a major heart attack at age 64. And he had kidney failure. Genetically,
You didn't win
the
the lottery.
odds aren't for me, right? The odds are against me. Like it's my reality. And so it started in the beginning of 2023. I went to my regular doctor, wasn't getting answers. I went and saw a different doctor, still didn't get answers. Went to a walk-in clinic, and it finally took 3/4 of the year to finally find someone who would listen to me. And in that, I was then diagnosed with high blood pressure. So I actually was right. I knew something was up, but it took them 8 months to finally take me seriously. So I'm on now like high blood pressure meds and then also high cholesterol. What I've since realized though is during that whole year, I was also taking my certification in menopause because I'm 47 years old. So I'm approaching that phase of my life, my puberty 2.0. So I wanted to prepare myself. And all throughout this education and all the symptoms I was getting, I kept saying, all of these line up with perimenopause symptoms. My periods were changing, crime scene periods, hot flashes. Yet when I would go to these doctors, and even high blood pressure and high cholesterol, also signs of perimenopause. Every one of them looked at my chart, looked at me like I'm not overweight, and I was on charts young to be experiencing perimenopause. So
I'm
then,
sure you'll be fine. I'm
yes.
telling you, I'm not fine.
And all my blood work was normal, and I knew it wasn't. And so I started working with functional practitioners towards the end of that year, towards the end of 2023. And it was through that experience, I then expanded my team to include functional practitioners to be able to give women more answers. So my focus, at the beginning, yes, was to help women and the yo-yo dieting and improve the relationship with food, but it's kind of transitioned to, yes, I still think you need that as a foundation, your nutrition is foundation. But in order to advance it, then it's like, how can we set ourselves up for success to thrive through perimenopause when we go to our regular doctors and we're not getting the answers? Now, this is not every doctor. There are some doctors out there that are educated, but they have to go seek that extra certification, at least here in Canada.
No, it's no different in the US. I have a love of nutrition. I was an athletic trainer before I was a physician, before I was a nutritionist even. I've always had a passion for nutrition, and that was born of my own pathologic eating patterns for many, many years, hence heart disease. And because I actually, funny enough, I don't have a family history. Mine is all behavioral. It's all food related and stress. And that it's like, well, and again, do you beat yourself up for decades of that, or do you just, go forward, change as much as you can? And here we are not educated in nutrition. I vividly remember being in the gastroenterology chapter in medical school, the chapter that, each chapter took about 3 seconds, it felt like. And I was in that chapter thinking, you're teaching me about these cells that produce chemicals, but you're not teaching me things I already know. How do I tell patients this? Or how do I already knew that it was going to be woefully well, there's not enough time to teach everything. That's another soapbox right there, because there's a lot on the internet now. So why are we teaching these things? Because you don't need to know the obscure stuff. You can look it up. Yeah. Anyhow, being familiar with it, yes. Being hounded, no. The things we need to be educated in are obesity rates in this country are at 75, or overweight and obesity is 75%. And although it's excess body fat, it's not about it. Janine Roth has a great quote. It's not about the food, but it's not about the food. Because it's the mental and emotional weight of that, because the habits that are getting you that extra weight are the habits that are killing you. So it's a horrible cycle.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. 100%. That's where I always say, like with my clients too, I said, as soon as you make your journey about the weight loss, you're going to gain it all back. Because it's really not, I know that's the big outcome that you're wanting, but more importantly, it's what you do every single day or consistently. You don't have to be perfect, right? So there's certain things that we set up for success in my programs that we set out at the beginning, and we work with where you're at. Protein is a big one. Like we're under eating protein, right? So ensuring we're eating adequate protein. So meeting my clients like where they're at. If you're only eating 60 grams of protein a day, which is pretty much what I see, 60, 80 grams.
We're down to 30, 40, 50 in the US. 30 grams is like kind of normal.
And so but then if you're like, people are like, oh my God, how am I going to ever do that? Right. So it's like slowly increasing them so they feel successful and creating a plan for them with that bigger vision in mind. Yeah. It's just, people still have to put in the work. There is no magic.
There's no shortcut. There is no magic. I wish there was. And it's funny because I've known about macros, the nutrition part. I'm kind of the opposite. So I've been, in the macro nutrition world since, I was 18, 17, and I'm 51. So there you go. 2/3 of my life I've been in that world, but I could never carry it out. And that's where my journey is a little not different than most, because I find my tribe. We find our tribe for sure. And I always joke with my patients, the clients, and the public that if my frontal lobe was driving this bus, we wouldn't be in this predicament. So, it's those neural grooves where I first started using food as a drug. I can cognitively recall at age 6, but my doctor took me off of whole milk at age 1 because I was gaining weight too fast. I don't have an off switch. I,
Yeah.
I never knew I didn't have an off switch until I had an off switch.
Right.
And there is no doubt about it. And I've gotten in lots of fights lately with people. Soapbox time. Be prepared. That you're telling people to eat too much protein. Could you please read the latest kidney studies, please? But again, I had a book coach, Simon Sinek's book coach, actually. I was in a lecture by him. He said, listen, if you're writing a book about mushrooms, you're not writing it for the mushroom haters. So
Right. Exactly.
just say your thing and be done with it. So anyhow, but that's my journey. I've known for a long time. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't do it. And I love when you say that you meet people where they are and you help them do sustainable changes that give them success. That's why when I
Yeah.
talk to people, I am a success coach. I need you. I want to be a co-pilot in your pocket on the way to success.
Yeah. It's their plan. Like,
Yeah.
most plans fails because if you just have a coach give you a plan, that's the easy way out. But if they give you a plan, you can't adhere to it, you'll never be successful. So it's really about them being in the driver's seat. We're just guiding, mentoring them, being that sounding board, being their supporter, saying like, yeah, I can see you do this. I've seen you do hard things. Just
Yes.
pushing them through.
They finally have
And
somebody in their corner.
and most of the times, because we know that they can do it because we've done it ourselves. We've been through that.
And it's not an easy road. I mean, it's not an easy road to hoe. It's
No.
the easiest is always sliding downhill. I mean, I use this illustration in my book actually that, you have to invest. And I'm definitely going to change this in the second book because you have to invest. You have to push the ball up the hill for it to roll down. On the flip side, you'll never stop rolling that ball up the hill because you can never stop investing in your physical and mental and emotional well-being because we have to build those. And it's like fitness, right? You stop, 7 days later, you're like, why I can't do anything. That sucks.
Right? Yeah. The hardest thing is getting right back to it. Yeah.
Yep.
It is.
Yeah. Muscle loss starts in 7 days.
Yep.
7 days. It's the cruise. Go to the gym on the cruise.
Yeah. You just feel so much better. I feel like, even in my journey when I was working corporate, even the way that I had to plan my strength training, because I didn't have the time in the morning. So it would be in the evening on my way home from my corporate job, right? So I'd have to pick a gym on my route home. And then I found that wasn't working anymore because I found like I didn't like the gym, the change facilities at the gym. And so then I was coming up with excuses. So being able to like call yourself out on your excuses to be like, okay, why this was working before, why isn't it working now? What can I do differently? Right. So it's just like, a lot of times people look at me like, oh, it's so easy for you. But no, I still struggle. Like there's still days where I don't actually want to go to the gym but I just do it because I know it feels good. And the more times I do it, the easier it becomes. It's putting in the reps. And it just
It is.
becomes,
And it's like Mel Robbins says, motivation is garbage.
yeah,
If I waited to be motivated, I mean, and even now, I'm 2.5 years into the the final iteration. I say this, it's not final. The final iteration of my entrepreneurship journey into the finally I achieved some modicum of health success. And even just yesterday, I fell into an old pattern with food. And I'll tell the public, I did 2 lives so far this morning. I tell the public, I tell my patients because I never want anyone to feel as alone as I felt on my journey. And
yeah,
that's, I think, the biggest thing because I went to my doctor right after I did Ironman in 2022 and it had flipped for some reason this one, I mean, I always gained 15 pounds after every race I did. It's just what I did. Because your hunger signals are way up here. Everything's all wonky with Ironman training. And I went in and I was crying in this guy's office and I said, I can't stop eating and I'm just gaining weight. Can't stop. I need help. And he said, well, eat less and move more. And do you belong to a church? And I was like, well, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one before. And the answer, I mean, I know what to do. I was in therapy. I was in 12 step. I had all, I couldn't do it. I needed help from a doctor. And that's what I needed help. When you went to the doctor and you said, I don't feel good, and they blew you off. I hate what that feels like for people. And so 2.5 years ago, I had a couple people ask me. I was just helping them online, talking on Facebook groups and just typing some stuff in. And I don't even know really why I started doing it. And I had people ask me, "Can you be my doctor?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe." Like I'd only ever been in the ER. I don't know. They don't let me leave that department.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So and that's kind of how it started. But I just never want people to feel alone. I mean, you know how hard the journey is.
It's very hard. Yeah. Yeah. And even when you think you know it all, I have all the tools, I have all the strategies, right? Sometimes that accountability piece. And you'll always hear that term, or people always say, like, even coaches have coaches, and it's so true.
Yes.
They really do. Yeah.
I don't trust a coach that doesn't have a coach. I'll
It's
be
true.
honest.
Yeah.
I try to keep mine to 3.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I hire an agency, does that count as a coach? Because I'm double dipping here.
So okay, I want to ask you, so your last shift was just on Friday then? How
Yep.
you feeling?
I didn't expect it. I was only working 1 shift a month. I had gotten removed from my main ER. So I was actually in a smaller ER. That happened 2 years ago. And I could have gone to another busy ER, right? I could have jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. My husband actually told me shortly thereafter that would have been the easiest thing to do, was to go get a new job. Again, IT. If you had just gotten another high pressure job, or if you had signed that contract again. But I decided to devote more time into what I'm doing now with coaching and my online medical practice. So that's been my full-time income, but I was still working 1 shift a month. And I started to have what I call work PMS. So the entire week before the shift, my sleep would be disrupted, my food would be disrupted. The 3 days of the shift, because I had that day, I always work nights in the ER. So I had that day, I had the night shift, and then the next day, those were garbage. And then the next day after that, we call it flip day and flop day in my house because my husband's an ER doc as well. So we have flip day and flop day if you work nights. So realistically, and then the schedule would come out and I'd get upset because then I had to plan it. I had to talk to my mom and see when she was it was just this, I'm like 2 weeks out of every month for 1 shift was the emotional turmoil that I was dealing with. I love it when I'm there and I'm not alone. I found out in this with other ER clients and acquaintances. So doing this last shift though was always a hit to the ego, which is, like you said, it was a grieving process. It is still is a grieving process. This is the beginning of it. It took me about 1.5 years to get through the identity crisis of leaving the main ER, but now not working clinically at all. And I actually told my scheduler I'm taking a break because I'm taking about 6 months off to see. I've got some things to do. I'm launching an EMR, and I've got some things to do that take my brain. So I do realize it will be a grieving process for sure.
And you're like fresh into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's grieving, but yet it's also exciting. I know exactly what you're going. I know those emotions because I felt it the last day I walked into that office building, knowing that I'm like, wow, this is really the end of this chapter, but the beginning of something so much more beautiful that also feels so scary because it's so unknown, because it's new,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
this whole identity too was like, I went from like contractor knowing approximately monthly what I was going to be taking home to like all of a sudden I'm coaching. I have these set of clients here, but I don't know what's next. And so that was the unknown. And but taking that leap and just trusting in what I guess I have to offer, and the services to help women, and just believing in that just kept me going. And so I think for you too, it's going to be a while, and just allow yourself to grieve it, because yeah, like even there's days today where I'm like, oh, I kind of miss that kind of going into the office. And but then I also like the flexibility that this allows me to, like for example, like when we tie it back to freedom and the time freedom that you'll get. And even though you're just having the one shift, physical shift, there was a 2 weeks of the emotional toll that you were taking on just to manage that one shift.
What?
Right? So, there's a lot going on, but the time freedom that you'll get, not even having that emotional shift for you, is like today is my husband's birthday. We were able to drive the kids to school together. We dropped them off. We get to have his free birthday breakfast at Denny's. So we had breakfast at Denny's. I came home and I got ready for this, and then I'll get some work done. It's a different shift in mindset.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really excited for you, Dr. Moe, in this next chapter. Because yeah, I think you're really gonna crush it. You have so
And
much to
it's very,
offer.
it is scary. And that was the longest job I'd ever had by far. You know, I was an athletic trainer for 6 years after grad school. And then, like I said, I've had entrepreneurial ventures in there, but they were all side gigs. You know, they weren't like now we depend on our clients, depend on us, our families depend on us. Not that we don't have husbands to, I get it. It's a community effort, but you feel your contribution, but no longer do you have this contract or this job or 35 patients in the waiting room. Granted, it would be really nice to have a waiting list of 35 clients that want to pound down my door for my services. You know, ask me in a year and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But, and it's funny, the only place you want to have people in the waiting room. But it's a very different place to be because there's no, yes, we have coaches. Yes, we've done, and we know we can do it, right? You've done it for 3 years, full time, successfully. My medical practice is fantastically successful. We're actually building that up. We just went 50 state. We went nationwide with the medical care. That part's great. But now I feel like now's my time to reach down and help the doctors. The first half of my career was helping the patients. It's time for me to help the people who help the patients.
Yeah, that's exciting.
It's terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. But it's a bigger impact, right? If I can keep doctors on the ground, we need them.
I know here in Canada, there's such a shortage. Like everyone, I haven't experienced it myself. I've been fortunate that I've had a family doctor, but the stories out of here and just trying to find a family doctor is just the timelines just to find someone is so
Yes.
hard.
I was
When you
talking,
have an online medical, like you were saying, you have an online medical, but is it only to serve within the state? Like you're in Texas right now, or can you
no, we
serve?
have my medical practice. So we served 14 states until a couple weeks ago. This is a soft launch, so I'm glad this podcast won't air for a couple of weeks
Okay.
because we're trying to not overwhelm we're trying to test our systems. But yes, we actually just went nationwide. So all states except for Mississippi, because they have weird telehealth laws that I can't even deal with. Um, so in Mississippi, I only do my fat loss coaching, but every other state in the US, we can provide healthcare, which is just amazing to me. I actually looked yesterday. I'm like, I wonder how I do this in Canada. I'm like,
Yeah.
stop it. You don't need another thing to do.
Right. Yeah. And I'm gonna ask, I think I already know, but for those of that are gonna be listening to this on my listeners, so I know like I help women with fat loss through the knowledge of macronutrition and the frameworks with that and building healthier lifestyles. Can you explain for the listeners how
Yeah.
you help women with fat loss?
So it's funny because we probably teach a ton of the same things
Yeah.
because, I of course can prescribe medicine, but what sets us apart from a lot of the other widely known companies out there, number one, I'm not worth $9 billion. We'll let's just start there. Um, but the same, you coach people, you help people through macronutrition, perimenopause. We have 5 pillars that are there's the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. They're similar to those pillars, like a Venn diagram. We sort of expand upon some, but we do protein, resistance exercise, electrolytes with your hydration, stress, and sleep. And those are the 5 pillars that I address with my clients, fat loss clients, and patients. So anyone who's my patient gets free access to my coaching. So, because I think that's as a value add, I was going to charge people and I did for a little bit and I was like, nah, I'll just give it to them because
Yeah.
that's what I do.
Yeah.
My coaches are like, could you stop doing that, please? And I'm like, okay, I'll try.
Yeah.
I mean, we're, like I said, we are in this, where I think the medication piece comes in because of the large percentage of our patients are on the incretin mimetic class, which is the GLP-1 class of medications currently, but that's going to expand beyond even just that GLP-1 receptor. My specific subset of patients are the ones like me where they knew what to do. We know what to do. Now, I do have quite a few that are like, how much protein should I be eating? those, I like that because I'm like, here, let's help you. But those of us who know what to do and can't, one of my patients phrased it really well. She said, it's not a magic pill, magic shot, as it were. It makes the impossible merely difficult. And I loved that because it's not cheating. I wear shoes, I drive a car, I do all these tools, I use all these tools that help me. And yeah, do I wish that it was took a shot every week and guess what? I have muscles and this is great. No, me and my puny little frame, we need to work on muscles. We have to work hard.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing, but she's doing the hard work with the shot. That's the difference, right? She understands that. And I'm happy to hear that she's getting the support because here, the amount of times that I've heard that my clients where Ozempic or semaglutide has been an option for them to lose weight when they've only had 5 or 10 pounds to lose. I don't know if it's necessarily the best option if they're having the issues that we spoke about, if they're not
Yes.
able to turn it off, right?
So
But in
that's
these
always my
cases, it
question
comes
for
down to
people.
lifestyle. But there's a lot of here in Canada. I was working with a client who had just come off of Ozempic, and unfortunately, she gained all her weight back. But it was because she was not getting the support she needed to in the lifestyle and the nutrition. It was just here's the shot, take the shot, and that's where I want to provide the women the education and the support because I feel there's a huge gap missing. I'll support GLP-1s if they're used the right way with the right support, right?
Well, it's
And
funny.
that's, I
Part of
just
my
feel,
education, yeah, part of my education in going through my obesity medicine board certification, I was exposed a lot more than I had been before to bariatric surgery. Being in
yeah,
the ER, I only saw the badness from bariatric surgery, terrible complications. I mean, flat out people dying. And not all the time, right? But I only saw the worst of the worst. It's like the media with Ozempic. Ozempic, everything's Ozempic. But in my education, I learned, wow, hold on, bariatric surgery really does have its place. Now, here's ready for the soapbox. Now I'm going to get on that damn soapbox because when a surgeon tells me that bariatric surgery is permanent, yes, it's permanent that we did cut out part of your stomach or rerouted the rest or all the, I get that. And it does have its place. It absolutely has its place. Then tell that to all my patients that I treat right now with GLP-1s because they've had bariatric surgery. And what else are you going to do other than a revision? Well, they need to come back for a surgical revision. Okay. I have a different opinion. I get it. We all practice medicine. And the tough part is for a lot of physicians, their patient asks for a GLP-1. They're open to it. God bless them. Thank you at least for being open to it. But then they say, here's your prescription. Hope you do okay. And that's it. That's why my coaching is so cheap for my fat loss foundations.
well, that's the thing. Like that's what I find is that there's missing this support,
Yep.
and it just, yeah, that's the piece. But the issue here in Canada, healthcare is quote unquote free, and I call it say healthcare. It's more of a sick care
Same here.
because
Ours
the
just costs money.
actual healthcare that we actually want, you have to pay for,
Mhm.
right? Like my perimenopause and the women that I support through my perimenopause program. Unfortunately, you have to pay for that because it's not offered anywhere else free,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You know, um, same with the support that you give your patients if they're going through the GLP-1. You have to pay for that support. It's not just given to you free. And
Yep.
there's that shift that people have to think about. Hey, not everything is free anymore. We have to
It's an
invest.
investment. Yes.
It's
We
an
have
investment
to
in your
invest.
health. Like health is key. Health is our wealth. Without it, you don't have a lot,
It
really.
is. One of my coaches has a great saying, and I'm sure he got it from somewhere, right? Because nothing new can be said. If
Yeah.
you have your health, you have 99 problems. If you don't have your health, you have one.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's just it. I had someone ask me on a public live this morning. Because our medical care is $119 a month. We also include unlimited urgent care, telehealth, right? But it's still urgent care. We want to be in your pocket. We want to be your co-pilot. We want to be the one with you. So if you're like, hey, my daughter's got strep, I have a sore throat, I'm sure it's strep, we'll tell you here, look out for this, and this. Let's start down the prescription. If it's not better in 24 hours, you got to see somebody in person. We get the whole thing. But we save them time. We save them, the trip. And I mean, I don't know of a service that includes that other than a primary care that's willing to work with you on these. But again, much like the shortage in Canada, we don't have enough time as doctors if you take insurance. I went with a primary care doctor after that I pay $125 a month for, because do I use them every month? No. But when I needed to get in for kind of an urgent-ish, not emergent. Well, I was having chest pain, and
Pretty serious.
he facilitated that happening for me to get in, because my gastroenterologist, because I needed a scope and I needed some stuff, and he said, "Well, we can get you in April." And I was like, "I can't really swallow food. So April's not going to work for me." Like,
Yeah.
but again, if I had gone into the ER, I would have been admitted, maybe. But again, who wants, and again, we have 35 deep in the waiting room. We need to change the system. Again, that's the soapbox part. I'll stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Bigger issues there, right? Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And do I think socialized people like we need socialized medicine like Canada? Well, no, like you said, the care that people want and need, they have to pay for anyway. It's unfortunately remarkably similar.
Yeah, yeah. But I feel that there is this shift coming. There is more of a focus on nutrition where there hasn't been in years, right? More of a shift towards the functional approach where there haven't been in years. So I do feel like there is this shift coming. There is the support and there's more
Yeah,
people that want this help. And
it
it's
is.
slowly coming out. And like through people like you and I, it's just pushing that message out there that, hey, there is a support out there. It's just you're going to have to pay for it, you know?
And that's just it. When you have to invest time. And when people say, for example, they're working a corporate job and I don't have time, I understand. You know, we get it.
Yeah,
So how do you reduce stress in an environment designed to produce stress? It's a hell of a question.
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I don't think everyone should leave their jobs. We need people, but we've got to think about things differently. We've got to take our sleep seriously. We've got to create a life where at least sometimes you can go to your kid's soccer game.
yeah,
Sometime you can drive them to school, keep them home from school, like we were talking about. You can keep them home from school without having to find help.
right.
That's freedom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I know people want to get rid of electronics and kind of go back to the way things were, but like you do with your clients, we've got to work in the real world. And what can we do? First things first, getting your protein. We tell our clients and our patients 50 grams by noon. That's the goal. And they're
yeah.
like, 50 grams by noon. Yes, because then you set yourself up for better,
Uh,
you know.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. But it's just small little steps like that, right? And yes, at the beginning it feels so hard, and then all of a sudden they just doing it, and they're like, "Oh wow, that's easy," right? Everything is so hard at the beginning. Yeah, it's just pushing through, right? A lot of people just need that extra push because that next action could be like the one that's like, oh wow, okay, this is so easy now, right? Just getting over that hurdle. And that's where coaches come in so handy. So,
Change is hard. Change, no matter how
oh,
you slice it, whether it's career change, diet change, it's hard.
yeah, we resist it. Any kind of change, good or bad.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, it's funny, before I started charging for my coaching for physicians, I offered, sorry, that's my alarm going on. I offered my program to 6 physicians that I knew at no charge.
yeah,
And a terrible idea, right? My coaches said, don't do it. Of course, I did it because I know best, right?
yeah,
Do you know that none of them could break out? Every one of them said, it's just easier for me to go to work. It is easier to do another shift or to take another contract until it's not, until something makes you stop. And thank God you saw that. Like you saw that in that meeting. I can't do this again. I can't, if I keep going down this road, I see where that goes. For
yeah,
me, it was when I buried my grandmother, and it was, I just looked and I watched her just decline at the end. She had sarcopenic obesity, lack of muscle mass. You think you're active in your 40s and it just declines, right? Because you just kind of go with the flow. And the funny thing was, I remember going with her to the health food store when I was a kid. Like she knew there was a thing to this. but there were just some key pieces that were missing that I wish I could go back and catch her 40 years before. I can't. I was two, I
Yeah.
couldn't do it then. But,
Yeah.
and I looked down my life and I said, is this where I want to go? And the answer for every one of us, and it's probably something really good to end on. I think every one of us should look and see the choices I'm making today. Where will I be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? Is that where I want to go? Because if not, you need to get off your ass and do something different. I don't care if it's the wrong thing, just keep looking. There's plenty of us out there. And if someone doesn't resonate with me, I always tell people when they're looking for a doctor, I'm like, listen, I might not be your cup of tea. That's for damn sure. We're a whole lot of crazy around these parts. But there's a coach out there. There's a physician out there. There is somebody out there that will take care of you. And maybe there's a group of us. Speaking of which, we should definitely do a webinar. But
So,
there's someone out there for everyone. You do not have to go this alone.
yeah, I agree. 100% agree with that. And I think when it comes to it being hard for me, initially, my journey was all about chasing fat loss and weight loss and the number on the scale. And it was a shift when I realized the relationship I had on food and just my mentality. When I realized how bad it was, that's when a shift happened, when it was no longer about the fat loss. It was more about teaching my kids a healthy lifestyle. I didn't want them looking at me and having them the same thoughts about food, like scared to eat carbs, scared to eat high fat anything. I was doing keto for a while, and my son, who was 6 years old, he looks up at me. We're at a party. He's like, Mama, how come you're not eating fruit? I said, well, because there's carbs in fruit, and carbs are bad for you. And he looks up at me, he's 6 years old, and he's like, well, if carbs are so bad for you, well, why are you feeding them to us? And it was in that moment I was like, oh my goodness, like, what are my actions teaching my kids? So it was like this beautiful, like I had no idea that this one investment in this coach had this profound effect in and transformation in my life, in my career, in my relationship with my kids and everything. So, you know what, and just that one investment led to this additional freedom that I have in my life. So, Dr. Moe, thank you for having me on this podcast and being able to share. And I would love to stay here longer with you
I
because
know. We could talk all day.
I know it was so good to get to know you more and all that. So thank
So
you.
for my listeners, where can people find you? And do you coach, are you limited to Canada or do you coach anywhere where people can reach you?
Anywhere where people can reach me, I'm all over Canada. I've had Puerto Rico, South Africa, mainly Canada and the US. You can find me on social media under Designed by Shar, the SHAR. If you send me a direct message with the term guide, I can send you a direct link to my fat loss guide. So it's based on macros. It just kind of teaches you the basic of macros and kind of the framework for sustainable fat loss. So message me the word guide and I can send that to you. So thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you out and about in our coaching groups, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
You do, you as well. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr.
Take
Mo.
care. Bye-bye.